Peace. Welcome to the YouTube live book reading of The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality by Dr. Cheikh Anta, edited and translated by Mercer Cook. And I'm your moderator and narrator, Uriel. Welcome live from the light. Came on just give this reading. Wanted you to be able to have some peace. There's so much going on, right? Yeah. So if I could just come on here and give you some peace and breathe with you just a little bit, lighten up the light. Divine rising. Peace. Highest heart love. So we pick up with this 9th reading on page 64 at the top. Powerful. Chapter 3, Modern Falsification of History, at the top of page 64 of The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality. Here we go. Fontaines next considers the claim that Egypt was probably civilized by Berbers or Libyans coming from Europe via the West. If it is shown that civilization moved from the north to the south, from the Mediterranean to Ethiopia, it does not necessarily follow that this civilization is Asiatic. It can still be African, but coming from the west instead of the south. In that case, North African Berbers could have civilized Egypt. A goodly number of present-day Berbers have an essentially Egyptian osteology. The ancient Berber was probably brown. It is to the influence of the European race, to the immigration of the men of the north, that we should attribute this description of the Tamhal, Libyans of the 19th dynasty, with pale face, white or russet, and blue eyes. These whites, hired as mercenaries by the pharaohs, strongly hybridized the Egyptian and also the Libyan. It is therefore necessary to disregard this and go back to the brown Libyan, the true Berber, to find the people who probably civilized ancient Egypt. This is a difficult task, for the African Berber has become increasingly rare in Algeria. In Egypt, the Berber type is too mixed. According to this theory, the African Berber from the west, the brown Libyan, settled in the valley of the New Nile, but almost immediately, or shortly afterwards, an invasion of Europeans hybridized the North African Libyan. This Libyan mixed blood with white skin and blue eyes may have modified the early Egyptian. By his European blood, this Egyptian could be related to the Indo-European race and to the Aryan. This thesis is the masterpiece of explanations based on pure imagination. It resets, it rests solely on emotion. I have cited it only for its ingenuity and determination to succeed at any cost in demonstrating that somehow the key word he had to reach. I have quoted, how or other the Egyptians had something Aryan about them. Aryan was the key word he had to reach. I have quoted the passage because, contrary to the previous theories, it is explicit. It is the fruit of unwarranted suppositions by specialists convinced that everything valuable in life can come only from their race, and that if we look carefully, we are sure to be able to prove it. An explanation is not complete until it attains that objective. From then on, it matters little whether the demonstration is supported by facts. It is self sufficient. Its valid criterion merges with its aim. We have already referred to the confused ideas about the Berber, so there is no need to return to that subject. The brown Libyan, the true Berber, prototype of the white race, is as real as the sirens. Moreover, if one sticks to the archaeological documents, North Africa has never been the starting point of civilization. It began to count in history only with the Phoenician colony of Carthage, when Egyptian civilization was already several millennia old. If the Egyptian civilization had come from the south of Europe, as Maspero assumes, and if it had slipped into the valley via the west or southwest to introduce elements of civilization, we cannot understand why it should not have left traces in its birthplace or along its route. It is difficult to perceive how this white race propagator of culture could have left Europe a milieu so conducive to the development of civilization without having created it. How it crossed the rich plains of Tell and the enormous expanse that separates North Africa from Egypt before that expanse became a desert, or why it would have crossed the swampy, unhealthy region of Lower Egypt, spanned the Nubian desert, climbed to the high plateaus of Ethiopia, traversed thousands and thousands of miles to create civilization on some caprice in some remote area, so that this civilization might later return slowly down the Nile. Assuming this to be the case, how can we explain that a fraction of that race, which stayed at home in an environment so favorable to the flowering of a civilization, remained unpolished until the centuries just preceding the Christian era? Mm, mm, mm. Isn't it so good? Peace, highest heart, love. We're in the third chapter, modern falsification of history, of the African origin of civilization, myth, or reality. Page 65, down at the middle bottom. Thank you so much for reading with us. I will put a brief vocabulary in the um, description, and I will put it in the playlist to this peaceful part of YouTube where we read books and we learn from masters. And so you just tap on the playlist on any of the books on this channel and it'll read the entire book for you. Thank you so much for being here. Peace, highest heart, love. Yeah, this is the third chapter. So he's dissecting all of the people that were in his era trying to write falsifications about history and where humanity comes from. So it's a long chapter and we're here for it. Thank you so much. This is a peaceful part. So you can enjoy it. Just relax. Take notes if you like. If you have the book, you can read along. All right, here we go. Opposing the hypothesis that North Africa was inhabited from the early antiquity by a white race, we can invoke archaeological and historical documents unanimously attesting that this region was always inhabited by Negroes. Furan tells us that at the end of the Paleolithic in the province of Constantine, Algeria, 5 layers of fossilized men were found. Among these, several Negroids presenting affinities with the Nubians of Upper Egypt are mentioned. During the historical epoch, Latin documents testified to the existence of blacks throughout North Africa. Latin historians have given us information on the population, mostly names which mean little to us. We should remember that at least a sizable Negro population existed. Herodotus, Ethiopians, whose descendants were probably the Heritans of the Moroccan Upper Atlas. This last quotation proves that even now there are blacks in the area. The only prehistoric civilization which radiated from there, even in Egypt, was probably due to blacks. During that same time in Africa and the Orient, which are untouched by the Soltrian and the Magdalenian or Narration Negroids, are directly continued by a civilization called Cas Capsian, the center of which seems to have been Tunisia. From there, it probably reached the rest of North Africa, Spain, Sicily, and southern Italy. On the one hand, competing with Caucasians and Mongoloids for the Mediterranean basin. On the other hand, Libya, Egypt, and Palestine. In short, its influence was felt to some extent in the Sahara, Central Africa, and even South Africa. This Capsian civilization leads to an artistic flowering comparable in its cave drawing to what the Magdalenian attained in Europe. But Capsian art tends to abstraction to the schematic stylization of figures, which has was perhaps to become the origin of writing. True enough, everyone does not agree on the date of those drawings, found in numerous places in the Sahara and even the Hagar, Algeria. Some view them as expression of the Capsian civilization, while others attribute them to the latter period in the Neolithic. The appearance of the ram holding a disc or a sphere between his horns would link this Saharan civilization to pre dynastic Egyptian cults. This is Amon, the ram god, whom we see created in the Sahara, then inhabited by shepherds leading their sheep and oxen to the pasture where today there is only a desert. So good, right? So great. Thank you so much. Highest heart love. Awesome, 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 right? I know it's great. It's great. The examination of the documents therefore testifies as early as prehistoric times to the presence of the Negro civilization on a very spot claimed as the starting point of Egyptian civilization. Previously, in the Capsian and Magdalenian, the facts noted would reveal instead an invasion of Eurasia by blacks who supposedly conquered the world. So it is that Damelin de la Plante writes, referring to the beginning of the Pleistocene, a migration of Hottentot type Negroes, then leaving South and Central Africa, probably submerged North Africa, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, and forcibly brought a new civilization, the Aurignacian, to Mediterranean Europe. These Bushmen were the first to engrave rough drawings on rocks and to carve limestone figurines representing monstrously fat, pregnant women. Was it to these Africans that the inner Mediterranean basin owed the cult of fertility and the maternity goddess? This hypothesis of an invasion by Negro Africans on both shores on the Mediterranean clashes, however, with several objections. Why fleeing the sun? Would these men have come to seek the cold? If we accept the assumption of a migration from Africa, it is not surprising to find the Argonatian tools in France, Italy, and Spain. But the presence of these tools in Bohemia, Germany, and Poland makes the hypothesis more fragile. Finally, the Argonatian tools exist in Java, Siberia, and China. Either the blacks had conquered the world or we would have to assume that there were cultural exchanges between the different peoples on the planet. Facing the same archaeological evidence, Furon adopts the idea of a fertility cult to avoid reaching the same conclusions. To accept that theory is to favor the hypothesis of a Negro invasion, which indeed is supported by the Aurignacian skulls, the Grimaldi skeletons. Africa's civilizing role, even in prehistoric times, is increasingly affirmed by the most distinguished scholars. Moreover, writes Abby Brew, it seems more and more probable that even in the age old days of ancient pebble tools, Africa not only knew the stages of primitive civilization comparable to those of Europe and Asia Minor, but was perhaps the source of several such civilizations whose swarms conquered those classic lands toward the north. The opinion of that great scholar goes even further. It seems increasingly evident that the humanity was born in Africa. In fact, the most important stock of human bones found up to now has been in South Africa. Although not the most extensively excavated location, it is the only place in the world where the bones found allow us to reconstitute the genealogical tree of mankind uninterruptedly from its beginnings until now. Further you go back in history, the blacker it gets. We had to drop a pin there. So many people, including the contemporaries, came to the same conclusion. All the same conclusion. Although it is not in the field. Yeah, let's go. Come on, let's go. Although it is not in the field of archaeology, I shall first speak about the problem of the origin of human type. Thanks to the finds of Dr. Raymond Dart and Tong and Macapan, and to those of Dr. Robert Broom and Sturkfontein and Cromdre and Swartkrans. Great progress has been made in the country. Before man, two-legged anthropoids of many forms were there. But increasingly, developing hominin traits such so much that so that we can begin to believe that human type was created there. The attention of all the specialists is more and more attracted to these magnificent discoveries, which multiply almost every month. Practically everyone agrees that until the fourth glacial epoch, flat-nosed Negroids were the only humans. A South African scientist has recently declared that the first men were black, strongly pigmented, according to the proofs at his disposal. It was probably not until the fourth glaciation, which lasted 100,000 years, that the differentiation of the Negroid race into distinct races occurred following a long period of adaptation by the fraction isolated and imprisoned by the ice, narrowing the nostrils, depigmentation of the skin, and of the pupils of the eyes. A single fact then remains, vouched for by the documents in the Libyan thesis, Aryan cited by Fontaines, that is the utilization of whites, blue eyed, tattooed blondes as mercenaries by the Negro pharaohs. Those tribes, called Libyans, were savage hordes in the western part of the Delta, where their presence historically is not recognized until the 18th dynasty. The Egyptians, who always considered them as veritable savages, took care not to be confused with them. At most, they condescended to use them as mercenaries. They never stopped holding them in check outside their borders by constant expeditions. Not until the Low Epoch was Egypt gradually permeated by domesticated Libyans who settled in the Delta area. Mm. Herodotus. Oh, this is so great. This is so great. Herodotus' description shows that until the end of Egyptian history, the Libyans remained on the lowest rung of civilization. The word civilized, however, broadly defined, could not be applied to them. Concerning the Libyan tribe of the Adri, Ab, Abdramike, Micah Day, the father of history, wrote, their women wear on each leg a ring made of bronze. They let their hair grow long, and when they catch vermin on the person, bite it and throw it away. Consequently, we may well be puzzled by the attempts to attribute Egyptian civilization to the Libyans. As a result, to this hypothesis, efforts have been made to relate the Berber and Egyptian languages by claiming that the Berber is the descendant of the Libyan. But Berber is a strange tongue that can be related to all kinds of languages. On the one hand, similarities have been noted between Berber, Gaelic, Celtic, and Cymric, but the Berber use as many Egyptian as African words. And depending on one's point of view, the basis of their language becomes Indo European, Asian, or African. The Libyan languages are, in fact, African. Through these languages, the Ligurians and the Siculans are, on arriving in Europe from North Africa, probably imported an African tongue, of which Basque could be one example. Mhm. The same applies to Berber grammar. Specialists in Berber are careful not to insist on the relationship between Berber and Egyptian. Professor Andre Basset, for example, felt that more convincing facts should be presented before he could accept the Hamitic Semitic hypothesis, Berber Egyptian kinship in particular. Both form the feminine by adding T to the noun. But the same is true of Arabic. Given what is known about the Arab and Berber peoples, we can wonder with Amelino, the prolegmenes, why the, or prolegomene, why the influence should not be assumed to come from the opposite direction, which would conform to the historical relationship between those two peoples. That is not the whole story. Careful search reveals that German feminine nouns also end in T and ST. Should we consider that Berbers were influenced by Germans on the reverse or the reverse? This hypothesis could not be rejected a priori by German tribes in the 5th century overran North Africa via Spain and established an empire that they ruled for 400 years. After the conquest, the Vandals, who remained there, mixed with the population. Only one segment, led by the Janissaries, tried unsuccessfully to conquer Rome by crossing through Sicily and probably returned to North Africa. Furthermore, the plural of 50% of Berber nouns is formed by adding en, as is the case with feminine nouns in German, while 40% form their plural in a, the neuter nouns in Latin. Whew. Since we know that the Vandals conquered the country from the Romans, why should we not be more inclined to seek explanations for the Berbers in that direction, both linguistically and in physical appearance, blonde hair, blue eyes, etc.? But no, disregarding all these facts, historians decree that there was no Vandal influence and that it would be impossible to attribute anything in Barbary to their occupation. We'll pause right here. Woo! Flames. Thank you for the likes and subs. We're pushing towards 700 on this peaceful part of YouTube where we read books and learn from masters live from the light here in LA. Reading the books to you. Yeah. The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality by Dr. Cheikh Anta, edited and translated by Mercer Cook. What a powerful reading. Beautiful, right? We light it up. Gotta give thanks. So grateful and thankful for all I have now and all that is coming to me. I wish all the greatness, balance to all of you. Thank you for reading books. Thank you for all the book lovers community. We love you so much. Highest heart love. You get to see it live. I will put it in the playlist when it's finished uploading with a brief vocabulary. We did a great justice. Day coming on here. Love to all our friends and family, to all of those solar returns. Give honor to you. So grateful and thankful for you being here on this planet, sharing the energy and unifying with us. To all our friends and family, we love you. Yeah, we sure do. We know it. Let's have a glass of love water. All our friends and family, honor Thank you for reading history books with us. Isn't that just the most powerful thing, right? Reading history of civilization and humanity. I love you. Love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you. Mm. Oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. Divine days and nights. So grateful and thankful. I wish that all the peace that you have is amplified during your day. You shine that light out to the people. Remember to look up. You might see a beautiful feather just float down, catch it. Then you look at it, blow on it, and make a wish while you blow. Isis. Ay, 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 ay. Love, 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 love you. I love you, you. Highest heart, love, and honor. Thank you so much for being here. Love to all the light workers. We're doing it. That's right. One reading at a time. We're pushing towards 700. Organic and real. I'm your moderator and narrator, Uriel the Verb Riley. Highest heart, love, and honor. You have a wonderful day. Peace, peace.